Alright, here we have Sven on his tractor, and the front wheels have a diameter of 18 inches, and the rear wheels have a diameter of 54 inches. And the question is, if Sven drives this tractor 600 yards, let's underline that, how many more revolutions does each of the front wheels make than the rear wheels? Okay, so we want to know how many more revolutions the front wheels make than the rear wheels. Okay, so the key thing to note is that as this tractor moves forward, the wheels go around, and when the tractor has moved a distance equal to the circumference of the wheel, um, then the wheel has made one revolution. Okay, so and that's going to be different between the front wheels and the back wheels, because obviously the front wheels are smaller, and you don't have to travel nearly as far to make one revolution of the front wheels as you do with the back wheels. The back wheels are quite a bit bigger. So what we really need to know is what's the circumference of the front and the rear wheels. So let's just do that. Let's just make that calculation for the front and the rear. So for the front, the circumference, and I'll call it CF for front, circumference of the front wheels. Now circumference is just equal to pi times the diameter, right? So one thing though we better be careful of is that we're given the distance traveled in yards, okay? But the diameter of the wheels are given in inches, okay? 54 and 18 inches. So so we have to be careful about that. So okay, so the front wheels are 18 inches in diameter. So we could just take 18 pi, and that's going to be the circumference of the front wheels. But in order to, let's convert this to yards, just so that because we're working in yards when we actually calculate how far he's traveled. Okay, and so we know that there are 36 inches in a yard. Okay, so if we divide that 18 pi by 36, we'll get the number of yards that he's traveled. Okay, so yards is 3 feet and 12 inches per foot, so that's 36 inches per yard. All right, so so what we have in the end is 1/2 pi yards. Okay, now the rear wheels, we can do the same calculation for the rear wheels. Circumference of the rear wheels, we'll call it CR. We're given that the rear wheels are 54 inches in diameter, so pi times the diameter gives you the circumference, and then let's convert that to yards again by dividing by 36. 36 inches per yard is going to give us a number of yards, and if we reduce that fraction down, we end up getting 3/2 pi yards. Okay, so this is telling us that in order for the front wheels to make one revolution, it has to travel 1/2 pi yards, and in order for the rear wheels to make one revolution, we have to travel 3/2 pi yards. Okay, so now let's see how many revolutions each of these wheels make when we travel the 600 yards. Okay, so let's first of all, let's just do the front wheels. Okay, so we're going to travel 600 yards. Okay, and we know that there are 1/2 pi yards traveled for every revolution of the wheel. Okay, so that's yards per revolution. So I could have written this as actually yards per revolution, both of these. This is how far you have to travel in order to make one revolution of the wheel. Okay, so when we do that calculation, we get 1200 over pi revolutions when we travel 600 yards. Okay, so let's take a look at the rear wheel. We're going to travel 600 yards. So if we divide that into the revolutions, for the rear wheel, we get, that's 3/2, 3/2 pi, right? 3/2 times pi, and that's yards for each revolution. And that's going to get us, what, 400. If we take the 600 divided by 3 and then times 2, we get 400 over pi revolutions. Okay, and the question, let's always go back and look at what the question asked. The question asks, how many more revolutions does the front wheel make than the rear wheels? Okay, so let's take a look at these two and take the difference of them to get how many more. So the difference between these two values is 1200 over pi minus 400 over pi, which is just going to give us 800 over pi revolutions. Okay, so the front wheel, or the front wheel is going to make 800 over pi more revolutions than the rear wheel. Okay, and if you multiply that out, that's about I just use a calculator to calculate that out just to get a sense of how big that number is. I got 254.65 revolutions. Oops, revolutions. So, but the question asks us to leave the answer in terms of pi, so 800 over pi is our answer.